right, welcome back to another episode of the Vets in Real Estate Podcast. I'm joined by somebody who lives in my hometown there in the Panhandle of Florida. Tim, an Air Force veteran, which just about everybody in the Panhandle is an Air Force veteran. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for willing to jump on with us and share your story.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
So I'm going to make the wild assumption that when you decided to get out, you were either at Hobart Field or you were at Eglin Air Force Base and then couldn't leave the beach.
That's funny. No, actually, what ended up happening, I used to be a flight engineer in the Air Force.
Okay.
And it was on the C-130 Papa, which was an MC, so the Spec Ops ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the Air Force had the great idea to get rid of enlisted people like engineers, and they retired the plane. So they told me that in good old military fashion, they've got three different options. You can go in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, to fly CV-22s. Or the second choice was go into the middle of nowhere and fly CV-22s in New Mexico. Or fly CV-22s in New Mexico. So it was like nothing. So after being with them for about 12 years, I was like, all right, guys, I'm not playing your game anymore. I actually palace front to go into the Air National Guard in upstate New York. That's where I'm originally from. And I did the Antarctic mission. That's actually me right there. So I went down and worked in the South Pole, close to the North Pole, Greenland, did all those fun ops until, you hit clear air turbulence, which happened to me, and I should have been buckled in and wasn't. Went to the top of the cockpit and back down, and next career. Here we go.
Oh, no. So, obviously, it sounds like your career transition was not necessarily planned.
No, not necessarily.
So, was real estate ever on the mind when you're in? You're like, when I get out, I'm going to do real estate? Or was it just kind of a, oh, crap moment?
Yeah, so I had it's an interesting story. So a guy that I used to fly with, so he was in the back of the plane, I was up front. I was a flight engineer and he was a load master. And he got out and went into real estate here in Fort Walton. As I left to go, hang out with penguins and flew for a couple of years, he got into real estate. And I also started as an entrepreneur. I was selling cruises at the same time. So he was doing pretty good in real estate, and I was just hitting up random people as salespeople do. And I was like, hey, you should come out. We used to be buddies in the military, whatever. So we were actually docking up against, docking in off of a Carnival cruise somewhere in the Caribbean. And the guy comes up to me and just randomly, I can remember the moment. I can remember the warm air coming in, you got the gust coming across, still a bit hungover from the night before on the cruise, and getting in there, and he's just like, man, I've been really good. I think you'd be really good at this. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, freaking flight engineer, what do I know about any of this? I'm like, nah, I don't think so, man. And he's like, well, you did get us out here on a cruise. I think you should think about it. I didn't think anything of it. Well, sure enough, it started solidifying in the back of my brain. I was like, man, that sounds great. Instead of having to working for the man anymore and being away from my home, my family, and everything else, it's like, maybe this is something I need to discover. So it did finally sink in my head. In upstate New York, I got my license up there. And right as I got my license, that clear air turbulence incident hit me. And those veterans that don't know, you could just get out of the Guard. I was 12 years active duty prior to that. And I was just like, oh, you can't get out. You go to jail if you just leave. But no, in the Guard, they'll just let you go. So at that point, I was just like, hey, my flying career is over. I want to get out and go do this instead. And they're like, okay. So I, on a leap of faith, not knowing anybody down there in Florida, because everybody left, right? They folded the flag. They were gone. And I packed what I could in storage, the rest of my car, and then just drove down from upstate New York to here in Fort Walton Beach. Stayed in my buddy's spare bedroom with only a couple $1,000s left in my bank account, with no sphere of influence, and just went to work. Got my license and just jobbed it out 80-hour weeks until I succeeded. Back against the wall. And we did succeed in that. It was a very similar market to what we're in today back in 2016, and ended up closing $6.2 million worth of residential real estate, 32 deals, and finally hit that thing that all agents want, which is that six figures showing up on your tax statement. So just
Yeah.
over that 100,000 within that first year, back against the wall fighting. And I'll tell you, that resilience came from all those years in the military, from all those wonderful deployments in places that nobody wants to go, all the tough things that we have to go through as military members. On the civilian side, it translated so much better in comparison to our civilian peers.
I'm impressed because you, no sphere, no nothing, moved halfway across the country.
Yep.
What in the world did that first month look like? Of I got my license. Now what the heck am I doing?
So luckily enough, I joined a team, um, and my other buddy had a 2 year head start. So we decided
Hmm.
he wanted to start a team. It was kind of the Keller Williams model that they were building out with agents,
Hmm.
and really just took me under their wing. And I
Hmm.
absorbed every bit of information I possibly could. I was an information junkie, and I would sit there when everybody else went home. When they did, maybe a bottle of whiskey came out. I don't know. I can't say, but we were just on the phone slamming cold calls and whatever else we needed to get the edge on our competition in the market.
Hmm.
And we just tried everything, absolutely everything. And those experienced real estate agents know most of your business is going to come from SOI. If you don't have that, it's infinitely harder to find strangers to do it. But really, my claim to fame was open houses. My claim to fame was
Okay.
open houses. I sat anywhere between 2 to 4 a week if I had to, just why not? And while I was there, I was either reading something professional, learning contracts, all the new agent stuff, or continuing to prospect, in somebody else's living room until somebody showed up.
Hmm.
So, we really maximize our time to make that effective.
So did you see just kind of instant success within that first kind of month of kind of getting going, or what was it? Did it take some time? I know on the commercial side, we tell you it's going to take 6 months before you start getting your first deal to work on. What did it look like in the residential side?
And it was a lot of work with no payoff for 6 months. And
Hmm.
then finally, one of my team gave me a lead that they didn't want to work, and I finally closed this one property. And with the brokerage that I was at the time, I had already accrued enough fees. So my first check coming out was $64.
Oh
That
my
was my
God.
first commission check. It wasn't a big property as far as sales was concerned, but it wasn't much, but it was momentum, right?
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing. It was momentum. So I saw that, and then within 3 months, I had a month which was December where I closed 7 deals. And after that, it was like 3 to 4 every single month after that.
Hmm.
And it was because of the momentum, and it was the relentlessness of just keeping going, understanding the shifts in the market, but just not letting that the wave of real estate go through where you didn't have those gaps.
Hmm.
And I just learned very quickly because of it.
So you're saying that in the first year or so, you're doing 80-hour weeks, just trying to build that momentum.
Mhm.
Did that continue long term? Was that just for the first year, life is going to suck and
Yeah,
it'll get better after that?
Yeah, pretty much for about 8 months, I knew that life was going to suck. But remember the story. Like, I'm not even living in my own place yet. I'm living in
Hmm.
somebody's spare bedroom, and just working my face off. And finally, like when I caught momentum after the first 8 months, then I could sit back a little bit. I had figured out what works. I started
Hmm.
building up past client database, started farming them for referral business, right? And we all know for every 100 clients, that past clients, we can get like, almost guaranteed 12 to 19 closings per year, if not more, if you're doing it effectively, right? So I knew that. And the goal was to get to 300, and then I could sit back and just work off my sphere, right?
Hmm.
But I had a lot of good mentors and asked a lot of questions, went to conferences and everything else that I could to, be on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, in order to continue to do that. But to answer your question, I did start to back off when I saw that. It wasn't 80, it was closer to 60. And then eventually I could get down to more of the 40 to 50 hours a week
Hmm.
for a while.
I mean, you're obviously starting to build a business, but you've referred back to conferences, books, reading,
Yeah,
education. Like
absolutely.
you brought that back over and over and over again already in the 6 minutes we've been doing this. What were those books that you found were just, I mean, absolutely game changers for you? What were those conferences that were absolute game changers for you early on that, absolutely
So,
would do again.
so as I told you before, I'm an information junkie. All right. So
Hmm.
I don't expect other people to do this. But for 8 years, I averaged around 30 books a year that I would read. Okay. Some of which I read many a time. So that's what I'm going to answer that question with. All right. But one of the best turning points, and I still give this to coaching clients or anybody else that asks. The first book that I tell people to read is The One Thing. That was Gary
Mm.
Keller's book that he had. And it really just teaches you how to concentrate on basically Pareto's principle. If you're not familiar with that, that's the 80-20 rule where 20% of what you have scheduled in any given day, week, month is going to solve 80% of your problems, right? Once you can identify that, then it's blocking time off in order to accomplish that, right? That was the biggest paradigm shift, the biggest mind shift that I had was right there going, oh, this is how to be better and more efficient, right? So efficiency became my game, right? Other things that we did because a lot of in-house, open house and in-person interactions, I had to learn body language. So Joe Navarro had a book called What Everybody is Talking About. And I wouldn't do that on Audible, but you can. But there's a lot of pictures for you guys to kind of figure out, hey, this is how to read what people are actually saying, not what's coming out of their mouth.
Mm.
The other one was Jack Schaefer's book called The Like Switch. Wonderful book. That's a good one on Audible as well, if you want to listen to a book. But that really gets into the mindset of influence, right? And all the two books were both prior FBI investigators. But
Okay.
Jack Schaefer's job was to make friends with the enemy. So it's really
Mm.
cool to read that. But I consistently do that. And those are also things that I teach in my coaching sessions. So those were the big three, um, at least for the agent. There's more, but.
Sure. And what I like about what your answer was, and we've asked similar style questions before. Gary Keller comes up, I mean, almost every single time, whether it's
Yeah.
millionaire real estate agent, millionaire real estate investor, the one thing. I mean, Gary's name comes up quite often, and I think I've had the opportunity to be in a room with Gary, listen to him, watch him draw on his whiteboard and explain something. Brilliant man. And I think with the books that he's done out, absolutely, I think you get to capture a lot of what's in Gary's mind. But what I like where you pivot was you only talked about one real estate book. The other two were outside of real estate.
Yeah.
It was more sales, personal development, those sort of things. I say personal development, I don't mean make yourself better, but how to make your skill sets better.
Yeah.
What was that just something because you were a ferocious reader, was just kind of pick it up, or was there some logic into that?
Well, it's a community that you're part of, right? So the community that I decided to join was not just real estate focused; it was business development, personal
Mm.
development. So we start to expand out into like the Miracle Morning, and it wasn't necessarily just how to be a better agent. Like you can learn how to be an agent pretty quickly. It's how to be a better person, how to make better decisions, right? And it wasn't until I was in the industry for about 3 or 4 years when my team dissolved and I decided to start one, right? Now that becomes a leader.
Mm.
So books like Extreme Ownership, right? And the dichotomy of leadership or whatever that one was, right? Those things came into really good play to understand the difference, especially from military background into the civilian. The way that they broke that down was brilliant, right? So as I ran an MREA team, since you brought that up, I did read that one as well multiple times, and then helping agents up as well. Like that's where things shifted. And as I became a teacher and I became an influencer in at least my local market, I knew that I had to take it to the next level. What else can I teach that you couldn't find on YouTube University, right?
Mm.
That you weren't learning from these other conferences. So I would listen around to these other coaches and things like that that were out there in the industry, and I'd be able to get a lot of these recommendations, and I would write them all down. And when I got to them, I would go sit down and either read them in my Miracle Morning, right, or I would listen to them in the car going from showings or listing appointments or whatever else I was doing.
Yeah, I have to say, when it comes to, I have a hard time sitting down and reading, and not just time, right? I'm
Yeah.
constantly on the go. Audible or some audiobooks has absolutely been where when I stop doing it, I was down to maybe 2 or 3 books a year. Now with Audible, I'm back up there to, doing 6, 7, 8 books a year
Yeah.
just through the drive time, which we spend so much sticking time in the car as real estate agents that the drive time becomes the best part of it.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
So so now you talked about just a second ago your team dissolved and you
Mhm.
decided to go build your own. What did that transition look like going from like how long were you in the industry when that team dissolved? You decided to build your own, and I mean, was there? I would imagine there's some fear in now being on the team to being a team lead.
Yeah, so I had a lot of aspirations to lead from the military. Matter of
Sure.
fact, prior to getting out, I was trying to go through his sessions, but because of the way the government works, it never happened for
Hmm.
whatever reason. I'm one of those vets that have one of the awards that only 1% of the entire Air Force or service gets, right? Which was called a Leo Marquez Award that I got for Afghanistan, right? Not
Hmm.
that it means anything to anybody, but that was just a passion of mine to get into that, to try to get to the next level. And the Air Force never gave it to me. And that was the struggle because I was still in the guard. You could still go through his sessions if you were too old to be able to do it. So even at that point, I was like, hey, you're going to be a navigator prior to this air event. And I was like, okay, so I was hanging on to that because I wanted to lead at a higher level. And that's what got me onto a team was that,
Hmm.
hey, we need somebody to come in to eventually be our operations manager. So I was already, even once I got my legs moving under me and understood the industry, I was already acting as an ops manager for that team. So the transition between operator to visionary is what that will take, right? Was a little rocky, right? Because we wasn't used to being a visionary. I was used to
Right.
being an operator. So I had some failings early, right? I did use some good models to go off of. I brought an agent on, which was not correct. You should bring on admin first. But
Hmm.
I brought an agent on first and, started working through that. And the brokerage that I was with didn't like team model, so I had to leave that to go to another brokerage that did like that. The other person stayed at the brokerage, so I went through a lot of different hiring cycles. Got to
Hmm.
really get to know agents, newer agents, experienced agents, unteaching bad habits, all those different things to do that. But I knew that I was building something and I was in control of it, so that was the
Hmm.
exciting part.
I like what you said about the transitioning from operations into visionary or
Mhm.
operations focus into visionary.
Right.
And I think even the military, a lot of times I want to be in charge, I can be in charge, I know this better. But I think you see it a little bit in the military, but especially as you move into the civilian side, those senior leaders can be completely inept at their job, but it's the ability for them to have that vision, that foresight, and bring people together, which I think sometimes feels completely counterintuitive to the way that we're taught in the military. You expand or excel in the military by being that technical expert, by growing and being the most knowledgeable there is. Where in the civilian side, I've had jobs or bosses where I'm like, you couldn't tie your own shoes, but yet you're leading this multi-million-dollar company because of vision. How did that shift? I guess one, have you kind of seen the same thing? And two, how did that operations to visionary shift? What was those lessons learned there?
So, we all have our own biases, right? And our own
Sure.
energies. So, one of the big things that we identify as that's popular in the real estate industry is the DISC personality assessment.
Hmm.
And it's an energy management tool, right? And most of us leaders are that high D, high I type people, or the weirdos, which are DCs, that's me, that are
Gotcha.
actually out there. Yeah, that put that stuff together, right? But another one to look at is called the working genius, right? And this is
Hmm.
another assessment that I go into, but it starts all the way up from the 30,000 foot level all the way down to ground level and divides it into 6 different categories. And without going too deep into it, the one thing I realized is due to the military and due to the things that I was doing as an ops manager, I was really good at taking ideas that people had come up with and just figuring out how to do it,
Hmm.
right? So that's an ops manager mentality. When it comes to vision, I think it just has to be inspiring to you, right? You have to see it. You have to understand what's important to you. And as I grew as an adult and as a man, I guess, I realized what my responsibilities were, for my family, for my daughter, for my wife. And I realized I was like, I'm in control of this. I need to create a vision for me and what that looks like instead of necessarily living for everybody else, especially as a team lead, because nobody wants that business more than you do. No
Right.
matter how much you pour into them or anything, they're never going to work as hard or care as much as you do, even about them. Right.
Right.
So there's another transition that I went through after being a MREA type team lead, which I can tell you guys later about. But the biggest part here was going, yes, I need that vision for myself. I need that vision to see what my life looks like if I'm going to create a lifestyle business while conducting real estate. So I guess that's the best way to put it. And then you have to almost tell yourself that you are that positive self-talk, the mantras that you could say when you're meditating or whatever that you do when you're praying. Like you just tell yourself that you are, and eventually you realize you're like, yeah, I guess I am. I guess I really am. I see the vision. I see where I'm going.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. And even to add to kind of what you're saying, I think sometimes the struggle, especially coming out of the military, is that we are so focused on the team and everybody else that sometimes we neglect us. We neglect where we are. We neglect that side of things. And I can tell you even more personally, over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so, my wife came to me one day and she goes, "You're miserable every day. Why are you miserable?" And it was one of those like, well, I'm happy to be married. I've loved my kids. I love everything. There's aspects of my professional life that I wasn't exactly happy about. And
Yeah.
with some soul searching, realized I was focusing on the wrong clients. I wasn't doing the right things. And my calling was more teaching, coaching, watching other people find success and giving them those pathways. But that took a few years for me to figure out. Now, maybe I'm dense, but I mean, did you take some time to kind of figure out that vision and where you wanted to go, or am I just slow?
No, you're not slow. I think we all take it, and some people don't even realize it. We just
Mm,
get so used to, we're truly entrepreneurs in this
mm,
business, and we come from, especially military background, we come from a job, come from a job, we come from somebody else providing for us, and us complaining about every step that they make, right? We talk about inept senior leadership. Some of the worst leaders I ever met in my entire life were in aircraft maintenance when I did that prior to being a flight engineer. But they taught me so much by telling me not what to do as a leader. They
mm.
allowed me to be the leader I am today. So I'm very thankful for it. At the time, I could have punched him in the face if it wouldn't take me to Leavenworth, but it's what it is, right? The good thing about becoming a visionary is that the whole part of it is understanding that you are in control of your destiny. I think that's the biggest part. We talk about it in the Working Genius as wonderment, why
Mhm.
things are the way that they are. Now, you could be a visionary and ask all these questions, but never answer them, right? So I think that's the key point is when you can ask the questions and then take the time to go, why is this way? Is there a how? We talk
Mm.
about books, Simon Sinek's book. Well, he's got a lot of good ones, but Find Your Why
Yeah,
was a really good one. And that's
one of
some
my
inward
favorites.
self-development to figure out the why of what you do. So I suggest anybody listening to this or watching this, like really, there's a great YouTube video from a TED Talk that he's done, and it's 10 minutes, I think. But you can go through and listen to that, and it will start to describe why you are the way that you are and what you do and why you do the things that you do. If you can start with why. If you could start there, then you can start building out the how, and the what. And that's actually what got me to where I am today.
I like it. I will say, as I went through that journey, Simon Sinek was one of those people that I got pointed to directly.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely fell in love with a lot of the way he broke things down, very approachable. So as you're going through that transition, I can absolutely see it. Now, I think what's interesting with your vision and kind of where you're starting to visioning to say things going, you actually sat down and wrote a book and are really proposing something that sounds absolutely crazy from somebody operationally, but you're proposing you can actually run a real estate business relatively remote.
100% actually.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I've proven the system. So let's just recap a little bit, right? I came into real estate in upstate New York, okay? And from there, I really didn't do any business, right? And it's New York, right? So I got out of there as quickly as I could. Came down here to Florida, and then, started working from nothing, right? As a team agent. And the team dissolved. I had to become a single agent, wasn't a single agent for long before I hired somebody else out and then made some mistakes, but then built out a 14 agent team with assistants on there. Like it was a good sized team for the area that we're in, right? But the problem with that is I was working just as hard, but not taking home that much more money, right?
Mhm.
But the reason I started the team in the first place was not to go on all showings and not to have 100% of all the client communication. And even though all the numbers you'd look from the outside looking in, be like, man, they're doing a lot of transactions. They got a lot of GCI. They got a big volume. The take home wasn't a whole lot for me, even if you're paying your agents 50%. I've got all the risk and all the overhead. It took me a moment. I think we all have those moments where I'm just sitting down, I'm at home, right? And I'm on my phone and I'm still working and my body is present with my family, but my mind isn't. And my wife looks over at me and I can just see it in her face. It's that I'm almost done because you're not here.
Mhm.
And my daughter at the time, like I realized like I missed a whole bunch of her life, like her first steps. I missed that thing because I wasn't mentally checked in when it happened or not physically there. And I was like, this is done. I can't do this anymore. There's got to be a better way. So what I ended up doing is I realized I was like, I need to get back into sales. Okay. Because I'm doing the only income I'm bringing in is my own personal sales. So I promoted all my other agents outside my business and said, hey, you're a single agent now. I hope that you enjoyed all the things that I taught you. Welcome to getting all your commissions. And they were a little reluctant, but they ended up being like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. We're excited. Some of them succeeded, which I'm super happy for. Some are still struggling, but that's just part of the industry. But what I did is I leveraged myself out through what they call the admin model. That admin model is been around forever, right? It's where you bring in an assistant and then you hire other people to do all your paperwork. But the biggest paradigm shift was when I went in 2020, when everything went virtual, right? I got my first virtual assistant. That virtual assistant cost me $3 an hour. Okay. The one that was in my office was costing me $12 an hour, right? And right now it would cost me more than that because of inflation. And I started to realize I was like, this person is just as talented as that other one that's sitting in the desk, right? I'm not paying them W-2, right? And it's a fraction of the cost. So I started having this thought. I was like, how else can we leverage? Who else can we put in this position? So what I ended up doing is figuring out, okay, so we all went virtual for buyers consults. Why can't we go virtual via listing consults? Right? Why am I still I don't want to have 100% of the communication. Can somebody with my instruction and with AI act like me and respond to basic questions? Yes, of course there can. Can we still have somebody that does all our marketing that's super talented that I'll pay a fifth of what I would pay somebody here in the States? Yes. And then when this all got built out, I was like, can I hire somebody to be an ops manager to run the system for me so that I only have to worry about top level things and top sales functions, right?
Mhm.
Buyers consults, negotiations, things like that, right? Imagine if prospecting was all gone. I hired a bunch of ISAs. Man, was that an issue trying to figure out, but I was able to do that as well. So I have a team of 7 right now that are all virtual, okay? And they're all under $7 an hour, okay? And they run my team for me. They say that you don't actually own a business until it's run by other people. And I 100% agree with that. As soon as I
Mhm.
realized that you could do that, and I rent agents and pay them per door through a system called Shawami, and I have
Mhm.
contractors go put out signs and lock boxes and take them off. As soon as I figured out those little nuances, I realized I could do this from anywhere. I could be up at home in upstate New York, right? I could be in Europe with some buddies of mine that still live there from back when they were stationed at Aviano. I could be anywhere in the world and run this company because it is leveraged out.
Mhm.
And because of it, I did write a book because I was like, we have to let top agents know this is the change, right? This is the thing. Because if you ask me, when we first started getting into real estate, we were sold a lie. And we were sold a lie that you could get in and make six figures and it was going to be the best thing ever.
Mm.
You'd be driving nice cars, living in nice houses, and you're going to have all the time to yourself. You're
Fair,
laughing, you
absolute
know,
lie.
right?
Yeah, it's a lie. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so if you go through the system, what I teach is that the first thing that you get is time freedom. That's one hire, time freedom, an executive assistant. The next thing you get is financial freedom, right? And
Mhm.
that's where you get somebody to handle your conversations as well as somebody to help you prospect or do the prospecting for you. And then the other part is location freedom. As soon as you can get away from all that, right, you can hire a marketer so that you don't have to do so much direct prospecting, right? You can do attraction. And then
Mhm.
after that, you hire somebody to run it all. And then you could do and live your best life. That's called mental freedom. So you can get all these different things. The book that's coming out is called The Freedom Agent, and it's going to be coming out Q4 this year. So if you guys want it, reach out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I have to say I've stepped a little bit down that same path as well. So I one of the best hires I ever made was hiring a virtual assistant. Sarah, she's the one that likely emailed you when we set this up. She'll be the one that edits this podcast when you see this on TikTok or wherever. She's the one that's putting all that out there, right? For the most part, she runs the bulk of my business behind the scenes. You
Yeah, it's
wouldn't
funny.
know.
Our
She
virtual
sounds like me,
assistants were talking to each other
right?
through us.
Right. And I find it hilarious a lot of times because I know a lot of professionals that do the same thing where
Yep.
it really is, they're both sitting in the Philippines or wherever, I'm not for sure where yours
Yeah,
are, but
ours, yeah.
they're both sitting in the Philippines emailing on behalf of us, working the night shift, for them. And I found it fascinating that one, the freedom it allowed me. And then as
Yep.
I'm building my personal team, commercials slightly different. I've got
Yeah.
somebody who's a showing agent who's on my team. We're working to grow him. But you're
Right.
exactly right. The next hire we're bringing on is going to be another virtual assistant who's going to sit down and do more video editing, marketing, creative type stuff and start going from there. In Texas, we can't bring in ISAs to directly market. They can't cold call. They can't do all that. So we've got a little bit of a holdback there. I think the laws in Florida might be a little different. But you're absolutely right. The process you're doing, I don't think could just work for residential. I think it could work for really many sales professionals, the way that you've got this built out. And I mean, we're, seeing a lot of the same things. I think you're just further down that path than where I am, doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah, so we actually have our own virtual assistant company that
Hmm.
we headhunt for people. It's called ignitevasolutions.com. But if anybody's interested in that, they can check that out. But we go ahead and source people directly for those types of things. If you want SOPs or any of those things of what somebody could do for your business, I obviously specialize in real estate, but I've got lawyers, title companies, all the other people out there using our assistants as well. So it's available for anybody that wants it.
So, what does that process look like when I come to you and say, Tim, I need to hire that video editor, creative editor to handle all that stuff for you? How does that process work from there? If I'm calling you ready
Yeah.
to hire that next VA?
Yeah, so basically it's just a series of questions of what you're looking for. Do you need a part-time or full-time person, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your budget that you want to do? What are the times that you need them to work with? And what specific things do you absolutely need from them? And what's your wish list,
Sure.
right? Because we always want more for less, right? So we go through, and our recruiting team out in the Philippines goes out and gets probably 1,000 applicants. They go ahead and interview them all to get them down to 100, and then they'll go into the next phase. And there's 3 different phases of interviews that they go into before they get to you. And typically, you're going to have 3 to 5. I've had upwards of 8 people that show up to an individual Zoom interview. We call it a final interview, where you get face to face, ask them questions,
Mm-hmm.
they get to ask you. And then at the end of it, if you like somebody, you get to choose them and move forward. And if not, you just go through the next iteration of interviews. And if people are curious, like, what can somebody do? That's also an email away, right? You can email me. It's ignitevasolutions@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you SOPs, what they do for day to day, what the average costs are, usually within a day. So if anybody's
Yeah.
interested, that's how you do it.
No, and I'll say what I was always impressed with, and of course Sarah's going to edit this so she gets to hear how I get to talk great about it, right? Um, she walks in with a college degree. She
Yep.
walks in with education. She had experience from other roles she had been in before. There was a little bit of weirdness in the first, 3 to 5, months of her learning commercial, learning some customs, those kind of things there. My favorite was she runs all my social media, and my favorite on this one was what she was on LinkedIn commenting on, on behalf of me and doing those kind of things there.
Yeah.
And there was a woman that posted a picture of her with her husband, and she's got a very nice, elegant dress, but it is maybe a little more revealing than what a married man should be commenting on there. And her comment was, "That's a beautiful dress. You guys look like a happy couple," or something along those lines, which from a 22-year-old female, completely appropriate. From a 40-year-old married man, not so appropriate. And that was the fun thing is that was the time my wife's like, "What in the world are you doing?" And she sent me a screenshot. And I'm like, "I have no idea." Oh God, no. So there was, I will say it's not always perfect right out of the gate, which I think that's one of the things when I hear people hire VA, they expect to be perfect right out of the gate. But it's
Oh,
just like hiring any other employee. Gave her 4 or 5 months. She learned my voice. She learned to kind of communicate like me. She understood my nuances, my ticks, my interesting, ways of doing. So now, even when you look at LinkedIn or social media, you really can't tell if I commented or if she commented because she's kind of mimicked and got a lot of it figured out. We've obviously talked about we can't, you got to post like you're a 40-year-old man. And she gets that now. She completely, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to tell your wife that it was me. I'm really sorry." No, no, you're okay. You're okay. But I think that's the one misconception when hiring these virtual assistants is that they're going to walk to me perfect. I don't have to train them. And that they're an employee just like if they're sitting, 5 feet from you or 5,000 miles from you, you still got to train. You still got to work with them.
100%, right? And I think that goes with any hire, right? Um, the one thing I learned from Dan Martell's "Buy Back Your Time." By the way,
Hmm.
great
Another great
book
book.
if you haven't read that to understand leveraging yourself, right? But one of the things he says is having 80% done by somebody else, any task is 100% awesome, right?
Right.
Uh, you pull anything from ChatGPT, Grok, or whatever sort of AI, know that it's only 80% correct, right? But if you have your VA, it's going to be the same thing, even if they come with training. But you have to take the time, you have to train them, give them the tools that they need. And I'll give you a quick example. So I've done over 400 long form videos on YouTube about the Destin Fort Walton Beach area. Check out that Living in Destin in YouTube, and you'll see all these and what a video editor from the Philippines can do. So check that out. Make sure to
Okay.
hit a like because I'm gonna enjoy that. All right, so or subscribe. But anyway, you can check out what they can do on top of that, and that system alone has made me 6 figures a year in GC. Okay, that
Hmm.
sort of system. But back to your point, when you hire somebody, I wouldn't say that you would hire them necessarily for their skill set. I always hire for culture. There's another book too that I'm in the middle of reading, which is awesome. It's not on Audible yet, so if you're one of those Audible people, but it's called Scaling Up Faster. Same
Hmm.
person that came up with Scaling Up, but they go through all these companies that scale super quick, right? But the biggest thing that they talk about is that they all hired for culture. If you
Hmm.
have a good culture fit, that person's going to stick around a long time. And just like you had commented, you just have to spend the time with them. If you spend the time with them, you get them, they're going to make mistakes like any other
Oh
employee.
yeah.
As long as it's not going to put you in jail, then you're going to be fine. As long as it's legal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say in managing that aspect for the first probably year, it was weekly. We sat down, we had a huddle, and then it started to kind of go every week, but we'd skip a week here or there because I was traveling, something didn't come up. And then it started going every other week, and then it was so that, and now we still have regular huddles, but they're nowhere near as regular because she knows what I'm already thinking. When a lot of times when I teach a class, she knows that when it's done, she's already sending off the invoice before I even realize that I thought about it. She's sent it off while I'm in the middle of teaching it because she knows it's already there. And we've built that relationship. We built that ability to work together over the time. And now, as we're starting to build more with the team, we're going to start doing more huddles. But it's exactly right. You're spending the time with, you're teaching them what you need, and they're not perfect from day one. And I think that's the biggest complaint I hear with people that say, "Oh, I'm going to hire VA, so it's going to make it
Yeah.
all easy." You're hiring another employee. It's going to be 6 months of teaching, training, getting them ready to go before they truly give you that first level of freedom that you were talking about.
Yeah, and that's one of those things too that's offered in the book and in the training, guys, that it's I always have them go through a 30, 60, 90-day training program.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to accomplish in your first 30, 60, and 90 days? Have KPIs or key performance indicators that they're supposed to be hitting every week, right? But I will tell you, back to your point once again, that if you spend 30 minutes in the morning per day with that person, it's going to save you at least 20 hours a week all together just with that one hire. Everybody thinks that, oh, it's going to take so much more time. I'm already stressed out. No, if you could just put a little bit of work in early, even
Yes.
if it's only 30 minutes a day, it will eventually compound and you'll have so much time and clarity to think to truly, going back to what we talked about before, be able to formalize and realize your vision.
Right. No, I love it, and that's one of the things I suggest to agents all the time is don't be afraid of the virtual assistant. You don't have to hire in person.
Yeah.
Absolutely could grow your business. And from a veteran coming in, looking at transitioning, absolutely. Once you start understanding your core competencies and you want to start buying some of that time back, I mean that's the perfect way to start doing that is to start finding those individuals to take things off your plate. And I mean, think what you're building, and you're not the only one. There's a lot of them out there, but what you're building is exactly what so many agents should and need to be doing. And it sounds like you actually will have a coaching program that kind of goes along with the book as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, we have a consulting company that we have coming up. I have two different versions. Somebody that wants to take it from zero to CEO. That's a 12-month system that we can take you through. We also have just launch for your top three, right? To get you in with your EA, your executive assistant, what I call your CFM, your client fulfillment manager, to take the fulfillment side out, and then to get your sales VA in there to help as a lead coordinator, which is in most states, like you said, to just make sure that your lead time and prospecting is concerted, and you can make sure that it's intentional. And in some states, you can even get them to be a full-blown inside sales associate, right? So these are different things that we'll be teaching, and that's a 6-month long program in tandem with the book. But the book itself will still teach you how to do it. And even if you just want to plug and play virtual assistants, we got it all covered. My passion comes from helping other agents. I'm burnt out from real estate. I want to help people that still have the passion that want to do that to take it to the next level because good people need to be doing real estate.
So as we start to wrap this up, looking back, when you're getting out of the service, coming into real estate, is there anything that you wish you didn't learn as difficult that you did, or you wish you'd have just kind of got the cheap pass of, I already learned this? Was there anything that you wish you would have done differently as you came out of the military to where you are today?
That's a loaded question, right?
That's why we
I
leave it to
just
the
want
end.
to ask it, but just I hate to say it this way, but all the mistakes and all the turmoil and everything that I went through um, made me who I am now, and I love the person I am now, what I can offer to clients and to other real estate agents and business professionals. It's made me who I am. I think a lot of veterans understand that the hard times made them who they are.
Sure.
Even if we have a sick sense of humor or things that bond us together, right? We just have a unique experience. I would say that it would be better to have some better clarity up front. And I wish I would have taken the time to go under somebody's wing a little bit earlier and be a little bit more humble and just take the time to learn from those people and just be in a room to listen, not to talk, and just absorb as much information and knowledge as I possibly could, even if I wasn't getting paid for it, right?
Mm.
So I wish I would have done that a little bit more. I wish my ego didn't control me earlier in my career. I think that we all kind of struggle with that too. So a realization of that. But overall, it's been an interesting journey. I've been blessed to be in real estate, especially in a place as beautiful as Fort Walton Beach and Destin, Florida. to be part of communities that I've been with masterminds and conferences, and to be able to share some of my experience and my knowledge with you guys. I'm just very grateful for that.
No, well, Tim, that's great. A great way to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. And for those of you guys listening, if you enjoyed what Tim said, let him know in the comments. Give the like. If you think somebody else needs to hear it, or you think the VA company or the book will be something helpful, feel free to share this as well with them. As Tim's book comes out, he'll let us know. We'll make sure that he gets on all of our social media pages as well, so we can help support Tim and help him grow there. So Tim, again, thank you so much for your time and being willing to share everything you shared with us. It was great.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.